What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for NFL Week 7, Thursday Night Football.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon
so you don't miss our new videos.
Okay, in this video, I'm going to give you my top picks for the Thursday Night Football Showdown between the Denver Broncos and the Cleveland Browns. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Oh, and good news, guys. Make sure to stay tuned to the very end of this video because we removed the box that was popping up and blocking the lineup. So now you can see a full lineup using these picks that we made in this video if you stay to the very end. Okay, guys, we have a Thursday Night Football Showdown between the Denver Broncos and the Cleveland Browns. So let's take a look at the quarterback position. So this game is full of injuries. Baker Mayfield is out. So you got Casey Keenum playing quarterback, or Case Keenum playing quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. And then Teddy Bridgewater, he's been limited in practice. He's probably going to play, but we don't know if he's going to be 100%. So out of these two quarterbacks, I'd probably go with Teddy Bridgewater from the Denver Broncos playing the Cleveland Browns, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the second most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Teddy Bridgewater has averaged 18 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 2.5 rush attempts per game. He's going to be about 62% owned, and he's 11,000 DraftKings salary, only projected at 16.8 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score 20 fantasy points or more if he's going to be healthy and 100%, which I think he might be. It's just a questionable tag, and he was limited, so I think he's going to be good to go. Now, Vegas thinks there's going to be 42.5 points scored in this game, with the Broncos trailing by 3. So this is a great matchup for Teddy Bridgewater, and with the Denver Broncos possibly trailing in this game, could be a passing game script. You get a little more of a rushing floor with Teddy Bridgewater, so I like Teddy Bridgewater here versus the Cleveland Browns. And now you're not saving a ton of salary with Case Keenum. If he was going to be lower salary, I think I'd consider him a little bit more. Also, his wide receivers, a lot of injuries at the wide receiver position for the Cleveland Browns. Both these teams just full of injuries. Okay, so now let's take a look at the running back position. So for the Cleveland Browns, you got Kareem Hunt, he's out, and Nick Chubb, he's out. So you're starting running back for the Cleveland Browns, and this is the guy that I'm going to play in my lineups because he's low salary and he should have a ton of opportunity in this game. I like D'Ernest Johnson from the Cleveland Browns playing the Denver Broncos, and he's going to be about 44% owned, projected at 11.2 fantasy points here tonight, but he's only 4,600 DraftKings salary, 900 more on FanDuel. So he's got a big opportunity in this game because of the injuries to Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. So this guy's going to be a lock for my lineups. So I like D'Ernest Johnson here versus the Denver Broncos.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching.
If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal,
all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won.
And we'll send you $25 PayPal.
So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Now for the Denver Broncos, you got two running backs, both right around the same salary. It looks like they're sharing the load on the team. So you got Melvin Gordon from the Denver Broncos, who's averaging 12.2 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 11.7 rush attempts per game and 2.7 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 54% of the snaps, going to be about 33% owned, projected at 9.5 fantasy points here tonight. He's $7,400 DraftKings salary, $700 more on FanDuel. So that's Melvin Gordon. And the other running back is Javonte Williams from the Denver Broncos, who's averaging 9.7 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 10.8 rush attempts per game and 2.5 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 45% of the snaps. He's going to be about 33% owned, projected at 10.4 fantasy points here tonight, and he's $7,000 DraftKings salary and $600 more on FanDuel. So it's going to be a coin flip between these two running backs. Both of these guys, similar stats, similar salary, production, rush attempts, pass targets, almost identical across the board. So really is a true coin flip here. Could go with either one of these guys. So I like Melvin Gordon or Javonte Williams here versus the Cleveland Browns. Okay, let's take a look at the wide receiver position. So the wide receiver stud on the slate is Cortland Sutton from the Denver Broncos, playing the Cleveland Browns, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the third most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Cortland Sutton, he's averaging 16.4 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 8.8 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 84% of the snaps. He's going to be about 58% owned, projected at 14.7 fantasy points here tonight. He's $10,000 DraftKings salary, $300 more on FanDuel. Now, Cortland Sutton, he scored 23 and 28 fantasy points in the last two games off of 14 and 11 pass targets. So he's been a target monster here, putting in 2 awesome weeks. Now he's got a good matchup. So this guy's captain material. So I like Cortland Sutton here versus the Cleveland Browns. Now the other wide receiver that I like from the Denver Broncos is Tim Patrick, who's averaging 12.9 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 5.7 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 82% of the snaps, going to be about 41% owned, and he's projected at 10.9 fantasy points here tonight. He's $7,600 DraftKings salary, $1,100 more on FanDuel, and he scored 13 and 16 fantasy points in the last 2 games off of 6 and 9 pass targets. So you're going to save a bunch of salary with Tim Patrick over Cortland Sutton, and this guy could be a big play guy here tonight. So I like Tim Patrick here versus the Cleveland Browns. Now, before we move on to the Cleveland Browns wide receivers, if you're looking for a deep sleeper pick, or just a sleeper pick, a low salary play, a salary saver, so you can fit those studs into the rest of your lineup, take a look at Kendall Hinton from the Denver Broncos. Now, he's only averaging 4.8 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 2.4 pass targets per game. He's going to be about 15% owned, projected at 4.4 fantasy points here tonight, but he's only $2,000 DraftKings salary. He's $3,000 more on FanDuel, and he scored 9 and 11 fantasy points in his last 2 games off of 5 and 3 pass targets. And he's a #1 wide receiver in this game, so I think he's going to get a handful of targets. And at $2,000 DraftKings salary, I think that makes him a pretty good play and a good matchup. So I like Kendall Hinton here versus the Cleveland Browns.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. Our NBA tools are awesome. This is a great time to get in and try everything for 1 month. The tools are all about saving research time. You can see the last 3 games, the fantasy points per game,
the targets they got per game, so you can see how involved they are in the offense, the rushes they got per game. Seeing all this stuff on one screen helps you save time and make better picks. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, now for the Cleveland Browns, you got some injuries at the wide receiver position. Jarvis Landry is out. Odell Beckham Jr. is questionable. So I like Donovan Peoples-Jones from the Cleveland Browns, and he's averaging 8.3 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 2.5 pass targets per game. But take a look at his last 2 games. He scored 29 and 12 fantasy points off of 5 and 6 pass targets. He's been on the field for 70% of the snaps, and he's going to be about 12% owned, projected at 8.4 fantasy points here tonight. He's 6,400 DraftKings salary, 1,300 more on FanDuel. Now, we had a monster game last week. It's hard for these guys to go back-to-back, put up monster games, but I kind of like this play at the low ownership. I think he could be a sneaky play here tonight, so I like Donovan Peoples-Jones here versus the Denver Broncos. Okay, now Odell Beckham Jr., he didn't practice on Wednesday, so that's a little bit concerning, but I'm guessing he's going to be good to go. And Odell Beckham Jr. has averaged 8.9 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 6.8 pass targets per game. He's been on the field for 75% of the snaps. He's going to be about 31% owned, projected at 10.5 fantasy points here tonight. He's 6,800 DraftKings salary, 1,100 more on FanDuel. He scored 13 fantasy points last week off of 8 pass targets. Now, he hasn't really had a breakout game, still kind of dealing with off and on injuries, and I don't like that he didn't practice yesterday, but there's just not too many wide receivers to go with here for the Cleveland Browns. To me, it's between Odell Beckham Jr. and Donovan Peoples-Jones, so I think you got to consider Odell Beckham Jr. here. I mean, this guy could break out any given game and just have a monster game. So I like Odell Beckham Jr. here versus the Denver Broncos. Now, if Odell Beckham Jr. is for some reason ruled out, that's going to open up some targets for Rashard Higgins from the Cleveland Browns at only 3,600 DraftKings salary, 1,600 more on FanDuel. But if Odell Beckham Jr. is good to go, Rashard Higgins would be a deep sleeper pick at only 6% ownership. He's kind of a dart throw, but he could get there. So if Odell Beckham Jr. is out, make sure not to forget about Rashard Higgins. Okay, let's take a look at the tight end position. The tight end stud on the slate is Noah Fant from the Denver Broncos, playing the Cleveland Browns, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing tight ends. Noah Fant has averaged 12.6 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 7 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 86% of the snaps, and he's going to be about 43% owned, projected at 10.6 fantasy points here tonight. He's 8,200 DraftKings salary, 1,000 more on FanDuel. Now, he was a full participant in practice on Wednesday, so I think that could make Noah Fant captain material. He's getting a ton of pass targets. He scored 25, 5, and 17 fantasy points in his last 3 games off of 11, 4, and 10 pass targets. So I like Noah Fant here versus the Cleveland Browns. Now for the Cleveland Browns, it's a toss-up here between Austin Hooper and David Njoku. Both these guys, similar production, both getting exactly 3.2 pass targets per game. So let's go over both these guys. Austin Hooper averaging 5 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 3.2 pass targets per game, on the field for 69% of the snaps. He's going to be about 9% owned, projected at 6.5 fantasy points here tonight. Now he's only $3,800 DraftKings salary, $1,900 more on FanDuel, so you might find him fitting into your lineup just because of the salary. So I like Austin Hooper if he fits into your lineup here versus the Denver Broncos. And the other tight end for the Cleveland Browns is David Njoku, who's averaging 8.4 fantasy points per game on the season, but most of those came from a monster game he had 2 weeks ago where he scored 31 fantasy points off of 7 pass targets. Outside of that game, hasn't really done very well, but he's averaging 3.2 pass targets per game on the season, on the field for 60% of the snaps, going to be about 14% owned, projected at 6.5 fantasy points here tonight. He's $5,400 DraftKings salary, $1,700 more on FanDuel. So he's not going to fit into your lineup as easy as Austin Hooper is, but it does look like he has a bigger ceiling or more upside. So you got to weigh that out. So I don't mind this play here. So I would consider David Njoku here versus the Denver Broncos.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NFL slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.